So before prorogation, before Donald Trump in the American election, Donald J back in there for a second term, throwing tariffs around the world. Oh, Lord. We had committee investigations here in Canada to look into the corruption of the current government, but they shut it all down. These investigations just stopped. They never should have. Anyhow, we like the committee videos. Let's take a peek at some of the best that we have to show. Like, we're going to see some of the best conservative MPs. We're going to see some of the worst liberal ministers, some of the most unprepared witnesses you've ever seen. But committee is what we love to cover here, besides like a question period and the things that are happening on the fly in Canadian Parliament. This prorogation has been so frustrating. Anyhow, we're going to be getting back to committee, and some of these questions eventually are going to be answered. Some of these investigations will come to a conclusion. And there will be guilty liberals at the end of these investigations, I assure you. Let's take a look and a listen. These are the committee meetings. Let's take a peek. We'll try to comment where we can. Try not to interrupt too much either. Let's take a look and a listen to some of our conservative MP favorites as they're demanding answers from these liberals in committee. It's very interesting. Let's take a look. In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups: the globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories. First up, we have Stephanie Cousy, MP from Mindpore, Calgary, Alberta. She's a lot of fun to watch, brings a lot of energy to it. The other one is Minister Anita Anand. She's been Minister of the Treasury Board, or President of the Treasury Board, Minister of Defense, National Defense, and now I think she's a Transport Minister. She does get around. She does not like answering questions or being put on the spot. Look at this nasty woman. Watch.
For 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Minister, for returning to this committee. You know, your opening it's beyond rich. I'm going to read some facts to you about your government, Minister, that I'm sure you're very well aware of. Cpac reported yesterday $3.5 billion in funds that were awarded to those who should not have received them. We've had the Arrive scam scandal, $9 million NYC condo, and this is the most expensive government in the history of Canada. And you're coming here and accusing us of playing political games at a time when your government has been completely irresponsible. And as I've said repeatedly in this committee, you are the one, Minister, who holds the purse strings. I'm actually shocked the Prime Minister gave you another job, considering the responsibility that you hold as president of the Treasury Board. Your effort should be entirely focused here as president of the Treasury Board on reducing the deficit. Because I will also remind you that from April to September of this year, the deficit is already $8.2 billion higher than it was the year before. The PBO that we have coming in the following hour said that you will miss the deficit target by $6.8 billion. So that's my first question to you. Is this number even accurate, $6.8 billion? Tell us today, Minister, how bad is the number? Tell Canadians.
Well, what I will tell Canadians is that unlike the Conservatives who vote against supports for Canadians at every step, whether it is the National School Food Program, whether it is the dental care program, whether it is the Canadian Armed Forces, whether it is affordable housing or Jordan's Principle, the Conservatives vote against Canadians every single time. So I find it strange that you can say you actually do support Canadians and you do care about Canadians when you vote against Canadians at every turn. So the question,
okay, so like
really
the Prime Minister, it's
very
clear
concerning for
you don't
all
know the
members
number.
of the
The
House.
Prime Minister showed Pierre Poilievre he didn't know the number last week, and like the Prime Minister, you don't know the number. Then tell me the number. Tell me the number.
I know the numbers. And
tell me the number. What's the deficit going to be this year? Tell the number to Canadians, please.
We are definitely engaged with all departments in the government, including the Department of Finance, that holds the purse strings in terms of our budgetary commitments, and we will be ensuring that the public accounts are delivered by the end of the year where all of the numbers will be contained.
Minister, now you come in here and you talk about all of these programs and how you are taking care of Canadians. Yeah, you can't even take care of the public service, and it's evident now. As it was quoted in Options this week, if you lay out the puzzle pieces as we head into the fiscal update, it becomes clear that there is no path forward for this government that doesn't go through the public service. You can even keep your promise to them to take care of them, to hold their jobs. Why should Canadians believe that you can take responsibility for them when you can't even take responsibility for the public service?
Again,
so you have stated now that you are going to look beyond attrition to cuts in the public service. We know from your track record, we know from our work on McKinsey, we know from the Accenture information released yesterday with the Auditor General that you won't do it alone. So can you share with Canadians, please, who have you hired to help you complete the layoffs in the public service?
Again, more inaccurate statements from my honorable colleague. I would first of all like to thank the public servants for their incredibly hard work. I would also like to say that our government will not be adopting draft-style measures like previous Conservative governments have done. We are continuing services
So what are you going to do to save the money then, Minister? You have this deficit. You haven't met your deficits in recent years. The PBO says that you are overshooting the number that you gave already. You haven't been able to give a number here today. What are you going to do? When you arrived in this position, not this past summer, but the summer before, you were so enthusiastic, so peachy keen about all the savings that you were going to find, and you haven't found these savings, Minister.
Again,
in fact, your financial position is worse. So tell Canadians today, what do you plan to do? You've let down the public service.
Mr.
Are you going to let down the Canadians as well?
Those statements are inaccurate. We have actually saved on professional services approximately $800 million, and we have instituted a number of reforms to ensure that there is more discipline in the system relating to contracting with third parties. I announced those last March. They include an updated manager's guide. They include a revised directive on the conflict of interest. They include a horizontal audit, and they include the development of a risk and compliance process. So all of those measures, in addition to reducing the government's reliance on third-party contractors, must be taken into account, and they certainly weren't reflected in the honourable member's questions.
Yeah, but was reflected was the continued debt, the continued deficit, you letting down Canadians, and which increases their taxes. You're talking about all these programs. You don't seem to understand that these programs cost money, that they add, in fact, to the burden of Canadians, because you are not keeping your promise to the public service or to Canadians, as is evidenced by the continued deficits, including the one this year, and you can't even tell me what it is.
Perhaps
Thank
the
you very
honourable
much,
member
Mr. Chair.
can explain why she's going to vote against 400,000 children and voting against the National School Food Program.
I have the floor.
That's the
I
question.
have the floor here, Minister. We said we'd stick to specific times. Mr.
So right here, we've got Michelle Ferrari, who is a firecracker, one of the favorites to watch on this channel. We also have Minister Jenna Sudds, who is like a tree hugger. I think she's Minister of Families and Children, something like that. It's not good for families and children that she's a minister. Totally incompetent. Let's take a peek. Won't answer a question, and she's woke obnoxious. Let's take a peek.
Madame Ferrari for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. Minister, on October 24th, there were a plethora of childcare operators who came to Ottawa from British Columbia, Ontario, and Alberta on their own dime, simply to be heard, but you did not meet with them. Why?
Thank you for the question. I meet regularly with childcare operators across this country. On that particular day, I can't tell you exactly what I was doing. I believe my staff
You didn't know what you were doing? Ain't that the truth?
perhaps met with them. I think it was the day before, but I'm always open to meeting with childcare operators whenever and wherever I can.
So that's just false. The organizer of that group wrote to you saying that your staff absolutely did go outside, but instead to take photos, these are her words, within minutes of our meeting start time for the apparent purpose of further mocking, discrediting, and shaming those present on social media by questioning the group size. So she has written to you multiple times, and including yesterday on December 2nd. So they represent 150,000 licensed childcare spaces, or more than 15% of all licensed childcare spaces, saying that you will meet with everyone. Will you commit today to meeting with this group?
Respectfully, nothing that I said in my previous statement was false. My team did meet with the organizer of that particular group, and I am always open to meeting with anyone who operates a childcare facility.
So just for confirmation, you will commit today to meet with ACE National, Canadian Coalition of Childcare Operators?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Moving on, Minister, Sergeant Lisa Harris of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary testified at Status of Women Committee last week, and she stated, "The Public Health Agency of Canada recognizes that children who witness family violence suffer the same emotional and psychological consequences as those who are directly abused. Will you commit today to protect victims and their children by advocating for stricter bail policies?"
As Minister for Families and Children, obviously everything I do day in and day out is ensuring that parents and kids across this country are set up for success. I will always look for opportunities to do that. As you, of course, know, there are other ministers fully engaged in that file, and of course, I support the work that they do.
So have you directly asked those ministers to enforce stricter bail conditions? Because, you know, as you've said, you are the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development. And in your opening statement, you said children deserve to receive the best possible start in life. Yet we've had the highest increase in child poverty in history under your ministry. Toronto's homeless shelters are now almost triple the number of kids they did 8 years ago, with more than 1,400 in hotel rooms paid for by City Hall. So again, I'll ask, will you advocate for stricter bail policies, as we know many women are being murdered in broad daylight because of the bail conditions where repeat violent offenders are out on bail?
I'm happy to correct the record. Actually, when the Conservatives were last in government, the poverty rate for children was 16.3%. The most recent level of poverty for children, which is still too much, absolutely, is 11%. We've put in place a number of measures that have been influential in lifting hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. And I would put out, frankly, that every one of those measures you and your colleagues in the Conservative Party have voted against.
You know, Minister, it is quite remarkable for you to sit there and tell Canadians who are using food banks at record high numbers, and that this is the highest increase in child poverty in history. Children living in homeless shelters, for you to be so smug and say that everything is great is quite insulting to families. Moving on, Minister, Terry Lynn McClintock, who abducted and then assisted her boyfriend in the sexually motivated killing of 8-year-old Tori Stafford, has been allowed in the presence of children through a mother-child program at a women's federal penitentiary, as well as Tara D'Souza, who was Adam Lubukayan, who sexually assaulted a baby in 1997, became the youngest dangerous offender in history, now lives with mothers and children in a BC jail. Are you advocating? Are you bringing this up to your ministers? Are you advocating that sex offenders and child killers do not have access to children in federal prisons?
Sorry. I find this line of questioning and these innuendos completely disrespectful. Frankly, let me
Tori
answer.
Stafford's dad finds you completely disrespectful. Just
Can I
answer the
answer the question,
Yes,
Chair?
please do.
Yeah. So, again, as the Minister for Families and Children, who wakes up every day with the responsibility to ensure that we look out for the kids across this country, I take absolutely every opportunity to do that. I live and breathe it, frankly. And of course, as a cabinet, we have conversations. We work collaboratively together where there is touching on various portfolios. And of course, I will always advocate for children's safety.
Then
And frankly,
will you commit to following up, visiting a federal penitentiary and seeing where these child killers and convicted sex offenders are sharing space with mothers and children?
I appreciate the question. I appreciate what you are trying to do here, respectfully.
Trying to do? What I'm trying to do?
Respectfully, yes, trying to do.
What am I trying to do, Minister? Tell me, please. What is it?
Your time is up. Mr. Long for...
Up next here, we've got Yahara Sachs, Minister of mental breakdowns, I guess, and family doctor Stephen Ellis. He's a Conservative MP from Cumberland, I think, here in Nova Scotia. Let's take a look. Stephen Ellis is pretty sharp. One of our favorites. Yahara Sachs is a bag of nothing. Gosh, she's awful.
Dr. Ellis, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, Minister, for being here. There's a statement, alcohol is a leading preventable cause of death, disability, injuries, accidents, and social problems. Do you believe that, Minister, to be true?
I think that alcohol is a substance that unfortunately is used by too many across this country without an understanding of what the health impacts of it are. We continue to do that work in prevention and education through the Public Health Agency
Minister,
of Canada.
I'm not asking you some trap question here. That's from the Canadian Guidance on Alcohol and Health, the final report. It's a simple question. Do you believe that alcohol is a leading preventable cause of death, disability, injuries, accidents, and social problems?
I believe that abuse of alcohol consumption can be detrimental to one's health.
Wow. Okay, I can see the game you want to play today, which is very sad on behalf of Canadians, Minister. You know, the other thing that's incredibly sad is that your government put forward a temporary tax trick on Canadians, which included removing temporarily for 2 months the GST on beer, wine, and ready-to-drink alcoholic drinks. How did that make you feel, Minister, when that came across your desk?
The GST tax break for Canadians was meant to address and does address affordability concerns that many Canadians across the country have shared with us. And in responding to that and listening to Canadians, particularly during the holiday season, we wanted to ensure that they were able to have a break during this time in the holiday season when they're gathering to celebrate.
But Minister, your government is promoting, by reducing the price, consumption of alcohol. Is that not true?
The GST tax break is for Canadians to make the choice of what goods they wish to purchase to enhance their holiday season.
I guess what I would say to you, though, Minister, the member from Canada-Carleton made an interesting video quite clearly encouraging Canadians to drink alcohol, showcasing a bottle of wine. Is that not true?
This is so ridiculous. This is what the Liberals do. You heard the question. Do you think that's true? Listen to the response. Whew.
I do believe the leader of the opposition has been in multiple videos grabbing a beer with folks and promoting it as well. So I'm not really sure what the point
Minister,
of your question is,
one of the most effective
Chair.
ways we have to help Canadians, is it not true that, again, well, why didn't you include cigarettes in that? Why did you not reduce the taxes on them? Why would you, as a member who represents mental health and addictions in the failing government, think that that's a good idea on behalf of Canadians to reduce the GST on beer, wine, and ready-to-drink alcoholic drinks? Explain that to Canadians. It's a simple question.
Through you, Chair, I believe I've answered the question with regards to the GST tax break for Canadians in addressing needs of affordability. Our Office of the Mental Health and Addictions, as well as Associate Minister of Health, is to ensure that we provide resources for prevention and so that Canadians can make healthy choices no matter what they eat or consume.
But Minister,
and this is the work that we do at the federal government.
If I might, did your department have any input into this policy? Did you know this was going to happen, or did they do it behind your back?
The GST tax holiday for Canadians is to address affordability.
That's not what I asked you. I said, did your department, mental health and addictions, have any input into the temporary tax trick, or did they do it behind your back?
As the member well knows, cabinet confidence is that, and the decision was to provide a tax holiday to Canadians.
So clearly, on behalf of Canadians, you would like to see them drinking more alcohol. That being said, Minister, what about the other parts of the temporary tax trick? We know that Canadians are having difficulty affording food. Your government supported a private member's bill, C-252, that actually wanted to reduce advertising to kids, and now you're out there saying that children, it's okay because we've reduced the taxes on it. You should eat chips and candy and coated popcorn and curls and twists, etc. Is that something, again, inside your portfolio that you agree with, Minister? Yes or no? It's not a difficult question.
So through you, Chair, it seems now that Conservatives seem to think that the tax is perhaps good, or that we should be evaluating this as public policy and how it relates to the price on pollution. I'm not really sure where
guess, Minister,
Conservatives
what I'm asking
stand
you to
on
do,
ensuring
which-
affordable. Chair, I do believe
Minister,
that I
excuse
have
me,
the floor.
I'm just going to interrupt you there.
I do believe I
You know,
have the floor,
I think
Chair.
the big thing is, Chair, is that
Minister, there's about 10 seconds left in this round, so make your
Yeah.
point.
I guess the question is, Minister, is why would you, as the Minister for Mental Health Addictions, support encouraging Canadians with unhealthy behavior? Sadly, Minister, that's your job. Sadly, it appears you don't know that.
Take 15 seconds to respond, Minister, please.
Sadly, Conservatives don't seem to believe that Canadians should have a tax break. So again, outrage is big but weak on action. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, Randy. Where's Randy, guys? Look up. Is he up there? You up there blowing a squirrel, Randy? Oh, sorry. That squirrel identifies as a chipmunk. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics. Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Question Period Canada. How y'all doing? Back with another crazy committee video. This one's Larry Brock. He was a big-time prosecutor. Now you can tell that he was a lawyer. Like, you can tell the way that he asks his questions and demands answers in committee. He's intense, guys. Let's take a peek at Larry Brock. Let's go.
6 minutes each, and we will start with Mr. Brock, please.
Minister, last Friday night, as Canada's second largest city burned and was under siege.
Yes, Mr. Biddle?
On the issue of relevancy, I know Mr. Brock
Why don't you
was
let me ask the
outraged.
question?
Mr. Brock was outraged last week when we were here.
My God.
He said, and filibustered for an hour when there was a suggestion that we may ask questions of Mr. Viersen unrelated to the topic at hand. This is unrelated to
Not a point,
Bill
okay.
S-13. Yes, relevancy is within the standing orders.
Okay.
So this Chris Biddle is the worst or the best example of what the Liberal tactics are in committee. Delay, distract, divide. They're just dirty Oh, watch this. You'll get frustrated with Larry. You can see him. Like, and this Chris Biddle is a dirt bag of a politician, like lowest of the low. What are we going to do? We're going to watch these committees and make sure the investigations are concluded. Like, that's it. Larry Brock, here we go. Larry Brock getting attacked by Chris Biddle?
This is within the standing orders. If Mr. Brock can keep to his questions to the legislation, I know he insisted that we do the same thing 2 weeks ago. Mr. Brock
incredible,
2 weeks
Biddle.
ago would have been very upset at Mr. Brock today. So I'm hoping if he can keep his remarks focused pursuant to the standing orders.
Okay, so thank you for that, Mr. Biddle. Relevancy is definitely within the standing orders, but I don't think Mr. Brock has even had a chance to
Of course not. This
to
is Biddle's
even
game
start
plan.
with the so I'm going to start you back at 6 minutes, Mr.
Thank you.
Brock.
Appreciate
and,
that, Chair.
And we'll let you continue. And I know you've been here as long as I have been here, and you're very well versed.
And it's the members' time.
So
Yes.
please proceed.
Thank you. Minister, last Friday night, as Canada's second largest city burned and was under siege by pro-Hamas terrorists rioting in the streets, damaging property, and citing their vile messaging of their extermination of the Jewish state, all the while your leader, Justin Trudeau, danced away at a Taylor Swift concert, sharing friendship bracelets with other fans. You, as Canada's chief legal officer, remained silent, Why, sir, did you develop, or why did you display a lack of leadership and courage in calling out this extreme anti-Semitic hate and violence?
So, Minister, please proceed. Yes.
Well, I reject that categorization, and I also reject what happened on Friday night in terms of its appropriateness. What happened on Friday night was a disgusting and appalling act of lawlessness and unlawful behavior by people who would seek to sow havoc and chaos on our streets.
Minister would have appreciated
and
you calling that out
referenced,
at the time, but you remained silent.
Yeah,
I'll
yes.
move on to my second question.
And I referenced that in my response.
Sorry, Minister, this is my time. A few weeks ago, November the 11th, during a bail compliance check, Toronto police officers...
Can you stop the watch for a sec? Mr. Biddle, yes?
Again, I think the time was given to Mr. Brock to bring it back to S13. He has not done that and now has moved into another question unrelated to the topic. I know Indigenous rights are very important to him. And he should move back to that topic, as Mr. Brock was insistent last week that we stick to the topic and Liberals stick to the topic. I'm curious why Conservatives don't hold themselves to the same standard.
I mean, relevancy is very much as the base of the issue. So I'm going to have Mr. Brock now. We will start the watch again. Mr. Brock, just be careful.
I'll get to relevancy.
Okay, just
thank you.
Please go ahead.
We support S13. A few weeks ago, November the 11th, during a bail compliance check, Toronto police officers found themselves... Madam Chair, this is becoming ridiculous, and this is a pattern that Mr. Biddle continually does at these committee meetings.
Mr. Biddle?
Well, the pattern is its relevancy. This is legislation. Mr. Brock acknowledged that the standing orders...
Let me ask the question,
again,
Biddle.
it's Mr. Biddle, Mr. Brock. We show each other respect in this room. And again,
like
he insisted last week that we stick to the topic at hand, and he's not doing what he insisted that we do last week. So I hope that Mr. Brock of a week ago will comport himself in the same way that he insisted a week ago that we should comport ourselves.
Mr. Brock, I'm going to ask you to proceed before
Toronto police officers found themselves in the middle of an active shootout between rival groups. 16 firearms were seized, all stolen and smuggled from the U.S. 23 people, including a young offender with 3 firearm prohibitions, was arrested. In response, the Toronto Police Association, the Police Association of Ontario, and the Ontario Provincial Police Association, representing 35,000 officers across the province. We're calling on the government for immediate bail reform. This is the federal government. Their calls to action included tough-on-crime measures that ensure repeat violent offenders are kept in custody, imposing stricter penalties for bail violations, and shifting resources away from ineffective gun bans to focus on combating illegal firearm smuggling.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
This isn't the first time.
Member of Parliament Maloney.
Look, Mr. Brock is entitled to his time. There's 2 points. One, he understands the importance of being allowed to ask his questions, a point he's made now more than once. But it's also important that he allows the minister the opportunity to answer the question, which he didn't do on his first question. And now he's asked 2 questions that have absolutely nothing to do with the topic we're here to discuss. So I think it is incumbent on you, Madam Chair, to get Mr. Brock to stay within the realm of relevance. I know that Mr. Brock thinks relevance is subjective, but it's not. It's objective, and it's for you to determine whether his questions are appropriate or not. And both of these questions are inappropriate and then far outside the scope of what we're here today for.
It would be very helpful if Mr. Maloney allowed me to actually ask the question, which he interrupted halfway through. Madam Chair?
So Mr. Brock, you've got 3 minutes. We've stopped the
By
clock,
my
by the
count,
way,
I've got-
each and
I
every
still
time.
have
A
4
point of
minutes.
order. No, 3 minutes and 29. And we've stopped it every time, but I'm gonna take a minute break. So just give me a break for a minute.
These committee videos, guys, just like Doge is going to change the face of America, this kind of is going to reveal the Liberals, because at the end of this, they will be concluded. That's my wish. Anyways, catch the next video. Thank you for watching this one. Aaron Canadian Loney, Ciao, gang. Ciao, gang. Ciao, 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 gang. All right, gang, we're out. Canadian loony, things are wild. Committee is coming back, though, and we cover that stuff. It is ultra interesting every time. We try to put some kind of funny spins on it and that kind of stuff. Not too much, though, just pretty much what's happening in committee. These investigations, I want to get to the bottom of these. Let's go for a spin. So, what do you think?
It doesn't matter what you think!